see, actually, it was from that experience in the men's dorm that Vince went into counseling for juvenile. I'm joking totally. It was great. It was a great experience. But from that time, we went eventually back later to Trinity, and I taught there at the Bible school. And then around probably 1986, some guys came from the Center for Ministry to Muslims, and which is an Assemblies of God. It's changed its name, but Assemblies of God Ministry. And God spoke to our hearts about moving to the Middle East. And we moved to the Middle East in 1989, and were there many years in Israel, and in Lebanon, and in Jordan. And our lives, our ministry lives have primarily, sometimes exclusively been among Arabs, Arab people, Muslims, Greek Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox, Catholics, but Arabs. And I was just telling my brother-in-law, Ken Martin's wife is Arab. I don't know if you knew that or not. Syrian. And we were with them, and it's been about 6 years now that we've been in Belgium, and we went there for the same reason. We went there to work among the Arab community in Europe. And I teach at a seminary preparing students to minister in Europe. And we've had a wonderful experience at the seminary, but we have noticed that over time, our focus of ministry in Belgium has been more and more in the Arab community. And I'll share more about that in the church service about reaching refugees, Syrians and Iraqis that came to Belgium by the thousands. Many thousands of them came from Syria and Iraq. And our ministry among them. And so our time has been, I love teaching. I've been involved in training people for ministry for many years by God's grace. And then also evangelism and discipling among Arab people, Arabic-speaking people. And Naomi has a great ministry to Arab women. She has a great ministry to seminary female students there at the seminary. So, we're really looking forward to going back to Belgium. We anticipate going back probably in July. And we have to visit a number of churches before then. But what we do on these Sunday mornings is a lot of times if a church has Sunday school, we open it up for people to ask questions about anything that they would like to ask about. This in Arabic, this means, hold on a second. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
That's funny. In Italian, this means, what's the matter with you?
Yeah. We anticipate going back there in July, and we're looking forward to it. We're right now in part of an evangelistic team, church planting team. Everybody is Arab except my wife and I. And starting new churches, Arabic-speaking churches. So that's just a little bit about us. You can ask about ministry, you can ask about Muslims, you can ask about what Belgium is like, any kind of lady-like type questions you can ask. And Naomi can answer, what it's like for a woman living in an Arab culture. But we will talk about what you ask about. That's what we want to talk about this morning. Yes?
I just want to know what languages they speak in Belgium.
Believe it or not, there are 2 official languages. And it's one of the few nations in the world, I think, that has 2 official languages. It goes with how Belgium was formed. Belgium was formed by the Netherlands, or Holland and France. And they made this country that's Dutch, I mean Dutch, and French. And the southern part of the country speaks French. The northern part of this country speaks Dutch, or Flemish, which is like a dialect of Dutch. And then right in the center, like for instance in the city of Brussels, they speak both French and Dutch. At our school, at the seminary, we have 2 tracks, one in English and one in French. So all students coming there, they have to either know English well enough or French well enough to study at the school. And we have around 30 nations of the world represented in our student body every year. So, I teach in Dutch, I teach in English, and everyone there has to know English well enough to do research and so forth in English. Yeah, so there's, sad to say, there's sort of a tension between the South and the North in Belgium.
Well, how big area, like what state would it be comparable to the size?
Man, I don't know, New Jersey, or, not real big, maybe maybe Maryland, maybe North Carolina, something like that. Certainly it's not as big as Pennsylvania, Belgium. But what's amazing about Belgium, and it's particularly Brussels, Brussels, for its size, it's about 2 million people. It is one of the most influential cities in the world. Now, I don't know if you knew that or not, but the capital of the European Union is right in Brussels. You can drive right past it. 28, 29 countries now in the European Union. And all of those countries have surrendered a certain amount of their sovereignty as a country to Brussels. And so Brussels has tremendous influence. NATO is right there. The North American Treaty Organization is right there in Brussels, just sort of outside. So the defense of Europe is headquartered in Brussels. So it's a really influential city. Yeah, go ahead.
When you were in Lebanon, in Jordan, Israel, how safe did you feel? And was there ever a time that you felt your lives were threatened?
Yeah. I mean, there's always a sense of, you pray, you put things in the hands of God, like, all the time. But there are particular times when you really sense, particularly, that there's danger involved. I've joked around with people. I think God has given me a spirit of stupidity, where I just am too stupid to be afraid. I don't think about it a whole lot. When I do think about it, I sort of feel like it's from God, because I don't normally think about it. And so if I'm thinking about it, He wants me to take extra precaution. But there are times, when we lived first in the Middle East, we lived among the Palestinians, just north of Jerusalem. And it was right at the heart of the Arab uprising. It's called the Intifada. Intifada means to shake out in Arabic. And the reason the Arabs called it Intifada is they were shaking out Israeli rule. And it was a very, very difficult time. A lot of clashes. We were, I remember when our kids were really little, and the one place we lived in a really, really rough neighborhood. I mean, these guys, they're like the real McCoys. They're not acting tough. They really are tough. These Palestinians, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys. And I had a great time with them. I used to play basketball. We'd get invited to their houses and that kind of thing. But I remember one time, there was a big incident in the Gaza Strip. And it just like spread like wildfire all over the territories, the Gaza Strip in the West Bank. And we knew something was going to happen. And they were lighting tires. And we lived in this road that sort of was an angle like this. And they blockaded this right here with a big blockade that the Palestinians did. And then they would go up to the main road and stone Israeli vehicles. I mean, you know what I mean by stoning them. And they were trying to suck at least I think so, the Jewish soldiers down into the neighborhood. And so the Jewish soldiers came down into the neighborhood. They couldn't get it, even with their vehicle, they couldn't get past the blockade. The blockade is right in front of our house. So the soldiers get out, the Israeli soldiers, and these are automatic machine guns. I mean, this is the real stuff. And all of a sudden, it sounded like sort of like rain, like heavy rain. What it was stones from this huge group of young Palestinian guys. And they were raining stones down on the Israeli soldiers. And they're hitting, you know. And all of a sudden, the Israelis opened up live fire. I mean, and they're spitting off shells right into our courtyard. The one guy. And our kids are just, you know, and that was their baptism into that whole area. But you learn to live with it, you know. You know, you have strikes, you know, our kids missed lots of school because something would happen in the old city of Jerusalem where they went to school. And, you know, and during the Gulf War, we were there for the first Gulf War. That was a pretty intense time. You know, we had our cars smashed, you know, the windows a number of times. You know, I don't know if that answers your question or not. I mean, it's always a sense of there in the Middle East, especially there, but also in Lebanon. You know, something can happen anytime. But there are particular times when it's very acute, and you just have to sense it. You can sense it. You can sense when something's going to happen. And you just got to really prepare for it.
As an American, did you feel welcome there? I mean, were the people friendly toward you? Was there
Oh my! They used to have parades with American flags, you know, right in our neighborhood. Just kidding.
I was going to ask if you're being sarcastic.
No, the Palestinians extremely disliked the policies of America. Extremely. They saw them as Zionistic, pro-Zionism. They didn't like the policies of America. But they had this ability to see us as people, even though we were from America, and treat us that way. They welcomed us into their neighborhood. You know, I remember one time, right before the Gulf War, there was rumor going around that when the Gulf War started, when Saddam Hussein started shooting Scud missiles, Americans were going to be killed by Palestinians. That they were in trouble. We were in this Palestinian neighborhood, really tough neighborhood. And I talked to one of the leading men, the fathers in this neighborhood. And I basically sort of beat around the bush a little bit, and I share with them, you know, what we've heard. And this is what he said to me. He said, they must come through us to get to you. Wow. So don't worry.
I was going to ask you.
Don't worry. Because, no, that doesn't come in one day. That doesn't come in one day. That comes from eating with them. That comes from having them in your home. They see that, I mean, you're part of their community. But I would not speak about politics. I would never speak. I mean, you just stay away from that totally. I mean, we don't wave American flags. We don't, you know. Even now in Belgium, every sentiment that I have heard in Belgium is very, very anti-Trump. Very anti-Trump. So Trump is very much disliked by the Belgians that I've talked to. You know, I should say not all of them, but so you don't trump like a trumpet. You know what I mean? You don't talk about Trump. You don't talk about U.S. policy and that kind of stuff. Even though people may try to get you to do that, just stay away from politics. Yeah. And that's sort of hard for me because I like politics. I have ever since I was a kid. Yeah.
Did you speak English with them, or did you have to learn the language and
Who's that?
the Palestinians?
Well, at first you do. You have to, I mean, because we had, I mean, right off the bat, we had a 600-hour course in classical Arabic. 20 hours a week for 30 weeks. Wow. Yeah. So, and then that's written Arabic, reading Arabic. And then you go to street Arabic, what people actually speak on the streets. And, I mean, you know, they laugh at you, and I'm sure we really find it sounded stupid, but, you know, it takes a while.
Did they ever ask you, I mean, like the people that you were living with, you know, why are you here? As an American, why are you here? Did they ever ask you that?
Yeah, sure.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, lots of times.
And you tell them.
Allah jabnahu. God brought us here.
To do what?
Ought to tell them about God, to share the good news. Yeah. So they see, the thing about Arabs, if they can put you in a category that they know, they don't have any problem with you. And Arabs have categories for religious teachers and preachers. You know, like the imams or local teachers in mosques. That's probably how they saw me, only I was a Christian. Yeah, it's when they can't put you in a category that you're sort of strange. Yeah. And I've discovered this, Vince, and then I'm going to get some of these other people to ask questions here. I've discovered this. With Arabs do not mind at all if you are very strong and forceful. In fact, they respect that. It's when you're like this, you know, like, why are you here? Well, I don't know. We sort of like it here. Yeah, right. You like being in the middle of the intifada? I mean, it's like, if I say that to them, but I mean, you can speak and preach as strong as they do, and they will respect you. They may not agree with you, but they will respect you. In fact, Arabs and Arab Muslims will not respect you if you are not fervently believing what you are saying. They will not respect you. And I'm sure they think, hey, listen, if this guy doesn't believe in this any more than he's showing, why should I believe in it? So being very, very strong and fervent. Not obnoxious to them, but fervent. Okay. Now, and this is nothing with Vince, but I want to hear a question from somebody else here.
I was starting to ask you, as a mother of a son that went to communist China, pretending to teach international law, but he was actually there to start churches.
Right.
And so if I was your mother, what should I worry about you? I can tell you what, I couldn't write him a letter without it being open. I couldn't have a phone conversation. Do you have any of those problems, or are you?
Well, first of all, my mother's in heaven, so she don't worry.
Well, let's pretend I'm your mother. What should I pray for you about?
Yeah, you answer that, Naomi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just that God would give them wisdom, because there's certain circumstances where, maybe we think we should do something, but God has a different plan. And so just for wisdom, for protection, because there are situations, there are sometimes things happen that you have no clue where it's coming from, but, you get hit with it, or you get asked questions, or, so wisdom and protection, that he would be effective in what he does. Seeds will be planted, because a lot of times, even like our work in the Middle East, we didn't maybe see immediate results, but we felt like we were planting, and, the results are up to God anyway. So those are a few things.
But she's asking as well, like, are there things that you shouldn't ask, shouldn't say? Like,
You could get, I can send letters to you, I can call you.
Yeah, our mail was open sometimes. We could tell, especially I think when we were in Lebanon, it was usually open by the time we got it. But yeah, so you can just be general, I think sometimes you can use, terms that maybe somebody else wouldn't recognize if, there's something that you really want to get across to them. But yes.
How did they treat you as a woman? Were you second-class citizen?
I didn't feel that really. I know a lot of times that's the view from the outside world, but actually Arab women have a lot of influence in the home. Maybe not like in business or something, but sometimes even there in government, in police offices, I've seen women. But I think they have a lot of influence, especially in the homes. Sort of like sometimes they say the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. So, yeah, that turns the head. So, yeah, I didn't feel that. You have to get used to the Arab culture for sure, and that was some challenge. But yeah, but overall, yeah, I didn't feel that.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Naomi that I don't think Arab women in the Middle East feel that they're second-class citizens. Maybe some of them. But in their sphere, they are protected. They're watched over. They're given influence in that sphere. Arab culture more clearly defines the roles of men and women than the West does. How many of you that are older, not old, but older, how many of you can remember in America when rules for men and women were more clearly defined? That's the way Arab culture is. And that's a sword that cuts both ways. It's sort of like a pendulum. Very possibly there are times where that can be misused by people who are sinful to like dominate women and subjugate them, that kind of thing. But what happens sometimes is it swings not to the middle, but it swings to the other side. And now in Western culture, there's no difference between men and women. Men and women. Like the gender neutrality and this fluidity between men and women, that's all based on the idea that there's no difference between men and women. Did you know that? Yeah. So we don't. We want to uphold women. We want to love women, and Arabs do in their own way as well. But we don't want to go in the direction where there's no difference between men and women. There are no rule differences. Let me share this with you real quick. I'll ask you guys a question. What dishonors an Arab family more than any other thing? What dishonors an Arab family more than any other thing? In other words, what will bring dishonor on an Arab family more than any other thing would bring dishonor on that family? Take a guess.
Disrespect.
Okay, disrespect? Yeah. But you gotta be more specific.
Unfaithfulness,
I'm sorry?
marital unfaithfulness.
Yes. Well, not just marital unfaithfulness. What brings disrespect on an Arab family is when any woman, any girl in that family is sexually unchaste. If any girl in that family is sexually promiscuous, that brings dishonor on an Arab family more than anything else. And old Arab culture says that if a daughter, for instance, brings dishonor on a family by spending the night with a young man, she must be killed. No questions asked.
Wow.
In fact, they believe there's no way, even if she were forgiven, there's no way that honor can be restored to that family unless she's put to death. Where's that from? That's from the book of Deuteronomy.
Yeah, it's something that I want to say.
No, wait, just a second, I'll get you. Now, I'm being a little bit more narrow than Deuteronomy is. But do you know in the book of Deuteronomy, you can read it, it's an Old Testament law. If a young man marries a young girl, and on their wedding night, if there is not blood on their sheet, in the morning, she's put to death. That's Old Testament law. And what that means is that she wasn't a virgin. So they're fanatics about their women being virgins, all of their girls being virgins, their wives being chaste, never bringing dishonor on their husband or on their family name. And the men of that family, what do? What did the men of that family do? They zealously guard the honor of their women. Zealously. So, if you're a young girl and you know the most important thing for you in that family is that you are chaste and that you're an honorable girl, and all of your brothers and your uncles and your cousins and your father are looking out for your chastity, does that make you feel good or not good? And you want to be chaste. You want to be chaste. Does that make you feel good or not good? Does that make you feel important or not important? That's a real question. I mean, I'm asking a real question. It makes you feel important. All of the men of this family, the extended family, they are looking out for my honor. I want to be a woman of honor. And they're all looking out for it.
You don't
I
do
remember.
anything with the boy that did it.
Huh?
The boy that she was with, does he get anything?
Yeah, not as much. Yeah, not as much. But but here's the thing about Here's the thing about Arab guys. Here's the thing about Arab guys. They do not want to marry any girl that's not a virgin. None. None of them do. Now, maybe some really secular ones, maybe. Who do they want to marry? They want to marry a girl from an honorable family that they know has never been with another man. So, in that sense, women are put on a pedestal. In that sense, their honor is extremely important. You know, that's like, here, come here, Naomi. Well, here's an old Arab woman. And I'm riding on a bus. And she gets on. What will Arab men do?